Welcome to Full Scope, a podcast designed to analyze the games that we love, headlines of music, and the movies we can't forget. I'm host Winter Burns. My counterpart, Savon Morris, was not able to be on for this one, but I'm joined by a special guest once again, Jamil Davis. He's been on for many past episodes, many album reviews. Thanks so much for being back on the last episode of the year.
Yes, I am very, very, very honored as always to be on with you and to just, be a part, of course, of the last episode of the year. So of course I know this is the customary end of the year awards and end of the year reviews.
You made the
podcast.
cut to be the last guest of the year.
Listen, I'm just with this. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like this is my second podcast that I've been on. That's the end. That's the end of the year deal. I do a wrestling podcast as well, and we did our end of the year review deal Wednesday. So okay. I was just like,
I gotta go listen to that episode.
Let's keep the tradition going. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot of topics to get into this one. Obviously, some college football topics, and our favorite sports moment of the year, favorite album of the year, some album reviews. In the second half, we're going to do a review of the new Little Brother story and documentary. But before we even get to some of the topics, Florida State just immediately annihilated by Georgia, 63-3. Also, in the NBA, the Pistons, they just broke. They ended their losing streak at 28 games. Which one do you want to start with, Pistons or Florida State? 'Cause I know Florida State, that one, man. Like, everybody was saying they should be in the playoff, but the committee was like, and I know a lot of the starters didn't play, but still, 63-3 is embarrassing.
I feel like whether the starters would have played or not, I feel like that would have been the direction that the game still would have went. This is the very example.
A lot of residue.
And FSU fans are gonna be upset with me. They're gonna check me in the comments when this gets posted on all the socials and all of YouTube or whatnot. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna stand by it. This is the reason why the CFP committee was like, we good on not having FSU in the playoff. This is specifically the reason why. I knew FSU was going to lose to Georgia. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. I really didn't think it was going to be this bad.
In no way am I thinking that this was going to be this type of blowout. I did think Georgia was going to win it, but it wasn't even a contest. By halftime, it was like, okay, Georgia's got this. They rolled away with it. And I do think Georgia's one of the four best teams in the nation. I do think Georgia, they were kind of dead set on trying to make a statement with this game.
Absolutely. And shout out to because Georgia also had some players that sat out
at 18
for the game as well. Yeah. So shout out to the incoming team that is about to hold it down next year for Georgia. Because I mean, essentially, that's what we saw on the field today. Exactly. They had a good amount of starters, but honestly, some of their starters were we gonna sit this one out because Kirby knows what he's doing. Kirby is
defensive mastermind.
He's essentially Nick Saban Jr.
That's what I always say. Years being the defensive coordinator, he knows that regime, and now he's developing Alabama 2.0. Because you can say what you want about them losing to Alabama. They only lost to Alabama by 3. They were right neck and neck with them. Alabama's the only team in this run that's been able to stop Georgia because Nick Saban is so familiar with Kirby Smart's patterns. But man, outside of that, Georgia's been on the run.
And people have to recognize though that every year that Georgia has lost to Alabama in either the SEC or national championship, Alabama didn't blow them out.
No,
let's be clear. It always ends up, we about to go to overtime, or and even the year that Georgia lost in the SEC championship, but then turn around and won in the national championship. Right. They didn't blow Alabama out. Those two, that's now the new rivalry in the SEC. And the situation is even going to be worse come next year when the playoff expands from 4 teams to 12.
Oh man.
It's gonna be
really interesting. It's gonna be
Next
really
year
good,
it's
and
gonna be beautiful.
I like that it's doing that because now we can't do the excuse of like, oh man, like somebody got robbed. It's like, okay, it's expansive now. It's gotten to the point where everybody has a point to make, and if you should make it, if you think you should make it, there's no excuses this time around. You know, this was the last year you can make excuses.
And if we would have done the 12-team playoff this year, looking at the top 12 teams in the CFP, the majority of them are SEC teams.
Oh, for sure.
So I know that the reason for this whole playoff system was to prevent an all SEC final or the SEC being the majority of the teams that's always in the national championship or whatnot. Y'all gotta get all the rest of these conferences, y'all gotta get better. And y'all gotta figure out a way to get some more money to hold your teams from wanting to leave your conference and go to either the Big Ten or the SEC. Because at this rate, it's literally gonna only be like 2 to 3 actual athletic conferences by the time we get to maybe 2 to 3 years from now.
Yeah, because like by 2025, the 2025-2026 season, Florida State, they're trying to get out of the ACC. They're not even trying to like stay in this conference. And I think Clemson is trying to do the same thing as well, just not as publicly. So I saw that on College Game Day earlier this morning, but that is a move that's being made. But them being left out of the playoff, it just enhanced it. Now they're like, okay, we got to get out of this conference if we're going to get robbed. But today was a sign of, man, they need
But but in the same breath, Florida State, do y'all really want to get out of the ACC?
That comfortable,
possibly and possibly move over to the SEC?
Yeah,
like
that's a monster.
Today should be an indication that
we don't want to play these guys in the season. Like we want to stay as far away. Just wait till January, and let's see if we have a shot, but not throughout the season. That's a whole different monster.
Listen, people think the Florida Georgia game is bad every year. Wait until Florida State possibly becomes a team that's in the SEC, because they're gonna be in the same division as far as the SEC East and West. They're gonna be in the same division as Georgia.
Yeah, it can get really scary soon.
And they're gonna be in the same division as Florida.
Yeah, that as well. So I mean, there's a lot of problems and dilemmas that they could be facing if they make that move. But getting to the college football playoff, it's interesting because both of these games, you have Alabama and Michigan. I feel as though that's one that's going to be, it may be more defensive centric than some people are expecting. I think Jalen Milroy, what he does, especially within the pocket, if he can be patient, that's going to be a key. And then Texas Washington, I think that's going to be a shootout. I think both of those teams are going to put up a lot of points. Michael Penix Jr. to me is still one of the most impressive quarterbacks I've seen this entire season. I'm going Alabama and Washington. I'm gonna go Alabama, Washington. And I've vacillated. I think Alabama, their running game could be really key in this one. I haven't seen, outside of Ohio State, I haven't seen a Big Ten team step up in the playoff. That's my only concern about Michigan. I think Michigan has shown that they are one of the best teams, but I just don't know in the big moment if they're ready for that yet. But they've got experienced players. I just think Alabama with Nick Saban and that game plan, it's so tough to pick against. But to you, do you have a particular favorite or certain picks in this one that you kind of think are going to win it?
So let's understand that the reason that Georgia was able to beat TCU last year 63-7 was because in the playoff they beat Michigan.
Yeah.
And Michigan is now playing the SEC champion from this year.
Yeah.
I love Michigan. Shout out Coach Harborough. I love Michigan. You're not beating Nick Saban. Nick Saban has a point to prove. Nick Saban has a point to prove.
Sneaked in at 4. And I mean, those teams that sneak in at 4, if it's Alabama or Ohio State, you got to be worried.
He has a point to prove, and his point is we deserve to be in the college football playoff over Florida. We deserve to be in it over Florida State. And we're going to show, we're literally on New Year's Day about to show you all why. We deserve to be in this over Florida State. They're going to beat Michigan. They're going to beat Michigan exceptionally well. It's not going to be this 63-3 blowout
it's
that we
not
just
gonna be
saw
that.
today.
Michigan's a good team. Yeah, Michigan's a good team.
They are. But they're going to beat them exceptionally well. And then Texas is going to beat Washington. It's going to be a shootout.
Okay.
But Texas is going to beat Washington.
So you got a rematch. You got Alabama-Texas rematch.
Yeah,
okay.
because I feel like Texas is an SEC team that's not in the SEC.
That's a good point.
And they're going to show the reason why they're about to leave and go. They're about to leave and go to the SEC in 2 years. like because they are legitimately leaving, and they're about to be. I think either this upcoming season or the next season is when Texas is officially a member of the SEC.
Yeah.
But I hate to say it, like they are an SEC team that isn't in the SEC, but they still aren't in it. They still aren't in the SEC.
Right.
And so Alabama's going to show why in the national championship why Texas still isn't in the SEC.
That would be a great championship, though. Alabama, Texas. I know. I mean, you got two huge fan bases. Huge. Mm-hmm. Alabama, Texas. I mean, that's as good as it gets in college football in terms of just like fan bases. So I think that would be a great. And also, that's the one loss Alabama had in the regular season, and they look like a completely different team compared to September. So to see that again, run that back, that would be. So you got Alabama win the whole thing.
I got Alabama winning the national championship. Because like I said, Nick Saban,
he's got Michigan. He's been riding with Michigan. He said they're the favorite. Don't even think Alabama can test them. So he's rolling with Michigan.
God bless Savon. Savon's gonna find out Monday why that's not the case. New Year's. And Savon my guy too. Shout out to Savon.
Definitely. Yeah.
He about to find out why that's not the case.
Yeah, man. I got Alabama as well. And moving on, I also had because we do this thing at the end of every year, our most memorable sports moment of the year. And to me, LeBron passing Kareem to become the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, man, I keep going back to that because he's had and this is his birthday as well. He turns 39 today. Yeah. He still looks as good as he did when he came into the league, which is crazy. It's just really a testament to his work ethic that he's able to play at this high level and even look better than some young players do. 22 or 23-year-old players. He just every year kind of ascends, stays healthy, puts up great numbers. And I think that moment, just to pass Kareem and do what he's done, it's going to be a while before we see another player pass LeBron. Do you have a particular kind of favorite sports moment of the year?
I tell everybody LeBron has something to prove. LeBron always has something to prove every year. Yeah. Passing Kareem for the all-time points record is an incredible accomplishment in and of itself. Once he started inching towards the record, though, I think all of us knew. We all knew it was happening. Yeah, like we all knew it was never.
What game is he going to do it? That was it.
Yeah. Mine is we technically are still in 2023 right now. So yeah, it's this Georgia versus FSU game.
It's a layup. Like, it's right there.
That's it. Like I just once again, FSU showed why the CFP committee was like
Jamil. Listeners, you gotta know Jamil is so happy that we recorded at the time we did because he's like, yo, I had the perfect chance for an answer. Like they just gave it to me.
That's it, and it helps even more that I am a Georgia Bulldogs fan.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs. We really legitimately should have been in the playoff. We should have been in the playoff this year, but I understand everybody that's in the playoff is like.
And I know and I know that you think if they got in at 4. You probably think they're winning it again, right?
They
three-peat, bro. They probably could have went for a 3-peat.
It literally legitimately would have been a 3-peat, even with because I feel like if they would have allowed us in, it would have been Michigan and Georgia, and it would have been Washington and Instead of Washington and Texas, it would have been Washington and Alabama.
Yeah.
And it has essentially been Georgia and Alabama again for the national
Texas
championship.
beating Alabama was the thing that, kind of.
That's what did. I mean, and honestly, that's what did it. So, but no, shout out. I'm extremely anxious for next season because Georgia actually plays Alabama
in the regular season. Yeah, that's going to be a game.
I may legitimately have to get in the car and go to Tuscaloosa for that one.
Bro, I'm talking about ratings and just the spectacle of them actually meeting the regular season. We haven't gotten that. We haven't gotten that in a while, and that's going to be crazy. I can't wait to see that game. That's
and my bucket list item for 2024 is actually, because I live in Jacksonville now, so my bucket list for 2024 is actually going to my first Georgia-Florida game. I've never been to a Georgia-Florida game yet, so I'm trying to check on when the tickets go on sale for that, and I'm gonna go ahead and get those and make that happen. Leave my car at the house and take an Uber or something. Because listen, if y'all have ever been in Jacksonville during Georgia-Florida week, especially the day of the game, you're not getting anywhere near downtown at all. Anywhere near Everbank Stadium, you're not getting anywhere near that. You might as well cancel Christmas on that and not take your car and just take an Uber. Just take an Uber to the stadium. But yeah, that's my goals. That's my like college football goals for 2024. And like I said, I'm very anxious for this 12-team playoff. And I want to see, and I also legitimately want to see the bowl games that they use for the 12-game playoff. Because if they use the Gator Bowl for one of the playoff game, then they back in Jacksonville. They back in Jacksonville again, and I don't care who playing in that game. I'm going.
Oh yeah, you gotta go to that. Got to. Before we move on to our first album review, I don't know if you heard the news, man. Sean Payton benching Russell Wilson, bro. With like 2 games left in the season, they're 7-8. They still have a shot to get into the playoffs. And to me, like, it was surprising, but not surprising, because if you look at the dynamic between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, it was never good. It was like, I'm going at him. I'm not even treating him like he's a starter. The vibes, you can just pick up the vibes between a coach and a player. Like, I'll say this, Brady and Belichick, I don't even know if they had that great of a friendship connection outside of just player coach. So I think there was some tension and animosity. With Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, we saw in the last few weeks, it was tension, especially the beginning of the season when they like lost to the Dolphins by like 40 plus. Did you have any thoughts about that? Because I mean, that's crazy. Russell Wilson, he does not, to me, did not deserve to get benched at this, particularly this point of the season.
They've never got along. They've never got along the entire season.
Yeah, man.
Like you would see reports on tension between Coach Payton and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson isn't performing at the capacity that he can be as a quarterback. You know, all these things. And so it's mind-boggling that you would bench Russell Wilson for the last 2 games. But I understand it from a money perspective, because once the season over with, even if they don't get to the playoffs, they ship him bro. They ship him bro somewhere. And Atlanta is like actually one of the teams that they're considering sending him to. Which is a whole
story right there.
Which is a whole dad joke waiting to happen.
It's like right there, man. It's right there.
It's there. Like, you know, you get the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and Russell Westbrook walks out on the field, and the first song that's being played is March Madness by Future. The jokes write themselves.
Don't do that, Russ.
The jokes write themselves.
They do.
Yeah. I mean, Sierra would be able to be home. She would be able to be home a lot because she's from Atlanta. But no, I've never understood the entire season. I've never understood the dynamic of Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. I've never understood their
Doesn't make
dynamic.
any sense.
He doesn't have Sean Payton doesn't have the dynamic with him that he had with Drew Brees during his time over
New Orleans.
at New Orleans, because they seemed like they had a genuine camaraderie and friendship.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's needed for the coach and essentially the coach on the field.
Right.
So like Sean Payton's the coach, Russell Wilson as the quarterback is the coach on the field. Like he has to control the dynamic of the team while they're on the field, because Sean Payton can't be on the field, especially during those times where they don't have timeouts anymore.
Right.
You got to know the mindset of how your coach, is this going to be a good play to do with 30 seconds left? One got timeouts. I gotta make that decision. Like, and they never were able to really build that dynamic out. And so hopefully Sean Payton gets what he wants in some type of quality quarterback, or gets what he wants in the draft, because they sending Russell somewhere.
Yeah, man, somewhere.
Russell is leaving. Russell is leaving Denver.
Oh yeah,
they sending him somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know where it is, but God bless.
Yeah, definitely. it's a wrap. It's a wrap in Denver. And now getting to our first album review with Billy Wood's Maps. In his second album with Kenny Siegel, he addressed different themes from trying to survive in a capitalistic society to the after effects of colonialism. He also has a really uncanny way of rapping with a different type of production for each track. And me and Savon, a few months ago, we reviewed one of his albums, and he really does. To me, I can't really compare him to a lot of artists today. He does kind of have his own unique sound and tempo, and I like certain elements of this album. I think he's one of those guys who he's really in tune with the way the music sounds, and I think he is very focused on cadence and wordplay. To you, kind of, what did you think about this album overall and how it's put together?
I understand the dynamic of how Billy Woods approaches MCing. He approaches it from an abstract jazz perspective. That was the word I was looking for. He really approaches it from an abstract jazz perspective, even down to his flow on a lot of songs. If you don't understand that about Billy Woods, you can kind of get lost in the shuffle of a lot of songs.
Yeah.
Because by the time I got to like the third or fourth song on the album, by the time I got to Rapper Weed and Blue Smoke, I understood, okay, I know where he's going as far as like where he's taking us on the album. And then I also thought back to other songs that I've heard him on, like the song that he's on with No Name on her new album.
Yes. Sundown, right? Yeah.
Like he came with that same type of perspective on that album as well, which actually that's the No Name album is literally one of my favorite albums of the year.
Yeah, we reviewed it last week. So good, man. Such a good album.
Like, No Name's dynamic. No Name's a dynamic artist, and I'm looking forward to what she's going to do as far as her international tour is concerned, and hopefully she has some more dates next year here in the States.
Do you think her career? Because we were talking about, me and Sam were talking about this. How do you see her career playing out? Like, what do you think her audience and her target, maybe her target audience can be years going forward?
No Name has No Name already has an awesome dynamic now, especially from the album that she put out in 2016, Telephone. Telephone honestly was one of the best albums of 2016.
Wow.
And then after she put out Room 25 in 2018, she took like a long break from music to focus on being more politically educated.
Yeah.
And then she started the No Name Book Club.
Okay.
and it essentially has chapters across the country. She has one in LA, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, where she's from. And then of course she has a group. She has a group as well, called Ghetto Sage, with her, Smino, and Saba.
Oh, Saba's
And
dope.
so the I want to say a couple of months ago, she did a tiny disc, and they premiered one of the songs from the upcoming project that they're
Oh
doing together.
wow, I didn't even know she did a tiny desk. I gotta check that one out.
Yeah, no, like no name is dynamic. No names, no names audience honestly is the um it's literally like the hipster black kids who are really into they're really into movement work. They're really into they're really into inclusivity.
Yeah.
Um they're into being anti capitalist,
Mm-hmm.
um socialist, the whole nine. Like that's no name's lane, especially with a lot of the things that she's done. Essentially the thing that really put her in the presence of a lot of people was the track that she did where she came at Cole.
Cole, yeah, man. Really, a lot
And
of
it was
people got introduced to her
and
then.
it was a track more so of trying to hold Cole accountable for a lot of the things that he does as far as um social justice work and things of that nature. And I like that she addressed that on Sundial as well, where she was calling out other artists,
Yeah,
but she also called herself out and saying, "Hey, yes, I'm calling
yeah.
Kendrick
The
out, I'm
big
calling
dogs out. Yeah,
J Cole out, I'm calling Jay-Z out for all of the capitalistic stuff that they do."
right.
But then I had to turn right back. I had to turn around and do it myself
Yeah,
because that's the type of system that we currently live in this country, and I got to play to the system too.
exactly.
So yeah, no, top notch. Shout out no name is dynamic, and I really respect what she does, not only as an artist but just also as a content creator and curator in the culture as well.
Yeah, definitely. And now getting to our next album review, B Kool-Aid's Leather Boulevard. In this album, it contains an iconic classic sound world in the album's opening moments, and there's a parallel of the vocal elements along with the polished production. And this is, I was kind of recommended this album on social media by kind of like I saw a video of a music reviewer who kind of said this was one of like their top favorite albums of the year, and it's a very different album. It's a lot of just soul elements. The sequencing is kind of structured in a very like smooth, just a lot of soul in it. And I feel as
Mhm.
though the production in it just glides through in a very kind of like straightforward way. A lot of good production in this music, and I feel as though the vocal elements go along with it just really well. And it's just a different type of album, not one you would regularly hear, especially in today's current landscape. What did you kind of think about it, and some of the things that stood out to you the most?
I like this album. It's a vibe. Like
Yes.
the album itself is a real vibe. You have elements of soul, funk, jazz,
Yeah.
especially the new wave of jazz that we're going in, that the direction that we're headed in with
Yeah.
artists such as Terrace Martin,
Oh yeah.
Robert Glasper. Like it had those type of elements in this album.
Yeah.
Um, very dynamic album. I liked Diamonds. I liked If You Can See Me. I like Streets Got Pages. Like I really was all over the place with this album, and the album
Yeah.
itself, like I said, it's a very dynamic, very smooth album. It was one I can really like ride to. And I actually did.
Writing
Like
music. Writing
I had
music
a
for sure.
had a space that I had to go. Well, I actually was driving to Atlanta a few weeks ago to come up here for my family's Christmas party, and I was playing it, and I was just like, I was like, nah, like this jam, this go.
It
So
does.
so yeah, nah, shout out to B Kool-Aid. They made a really, really dynamic album. I was like, I said, yo, let me start digging more into their catalog to see what else they have to offer. But it got saved on the Spotify. It was like,
Yeah, man. Because every time, like, there's just so much music that's put out every year, and there are albums I just miss, and I'm always like checking, okay, what am I missing? This one was like, I'm so glad I found this because it's a gem. It's
absolutely.
definitely going to be a hidden gem if you listen to it. Get into our next album review with Amber Navran's "Knock on the Orange Door." In her new album, this project contains soothing vocals and production that coincides with it. Her overall feeling approach is very smooth and also highlights what makes her, music with Moonchild always a lead in the engine. Just she is for them. This is a great listen. It's just a great listen to me. Her voice is just it has this like tender feel to it, and the production coincides. She never overrides the production. The production never overrides her. She just like goes along with it so well.
Mm-hmm.
I think every track it's sequenced really the right way it should be. And I feel as though that this was a really dope project. To you, how did you kind of feel about this project and what you brought to it?
How do you make an album full of interludes
That's
and
insane.
and it's just and it's amazing because like there's not a song on this album that's longer than 2 minutes.
No,
And
and it's for an album.
I listen the a friend of mine the day before the album came out, they actually sent me like the Spotify pre-save link. They was like, yo, Amber got a new album dropping. And I was like, word? It's like, yeah. I hit the pre-save link. It came up the day it dropped. It came up. I was in the car driving with. I was like, yo, like none of these songs are like super long, but I'm hitting repeat on a lot of. I'm hitting repeat on a
Do you
lot
want
of
to go
these
back
songs.
to?
Yeah, like I love Amber. One of my favorite groups is Moonchild.
Yes, I love
So,
Moonchild.
And the other thing that people don't realize is she produces. She's a producer. So like
Really?
every song on this album on Knock on the Orange Door, she produced it. Like
Wow.
she do everything. Like her and the other two gentlemen that's in Moonchild, they basically co-produce all of the music, but a lot of the music that's on Moonchild albums, she directly produces by herself.
Man.
Like she, man, like and I got the pleasure of meeting her last year when they were on tour. I went to the
Dope.
show that they did in Orlando, and it was funny because we were kind of like in the area. I was standing like in the area that leads to the door where their green room and stuff was at.
Yeah.
So I'm standing there. We waiting on them to come out, and it's this lady standing right next to me. And my homegirl that came with me, shout out to Ryan, she came with me. And Ryan was like, hey, wait a minute, ain't that Amber from Moonchild? I looked next to me and it's her. And I was like, like,
Wow.
you know what I'm saying? Like I was like, listen, I love y'all music. Like
Yeah.
and we got to chop it up about like a lot of other things as well. Cause she's very much into activism work also because their tour that they were doing was actually one of the sponsors of the tour was the NAACP.
Wow.
So like every stop that they made on the tour, especially when they got here to Florida,
Yeah.
every stop that they made on the tour before they came out,
Yeah.
they let whoever the president is of the local NAACP chapter in that area, they came and spoke first. Hey, this is stuff that's going on in our community, da 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 da. Want y'all to donate to the NAACP, become a member, and then Moonchild would just come out and just do all this crazy music. It's like it was great. But yeah, no, Knock on the Orange Door is my jam.
It's so fire.
it really is my jam, for real, for real. Whispering, whispering is Whispering and Sunflower are my two favorite songs on the whole thing. Even though they short as all get out, but they my two favorite joints on the whole entire album. I love it. I love it overall. And like I said, it's just that nice when you just need to like vibe and get away.
Literally away from the noise. Away from the noise is
Literally.
my favorite track. That's like like you're saying, away from noise. That's my favorite track. Away from the noise is crazy. Like, and it's like you said, it's really that type of music. You want to get away from things. It's the one you can ride and play. It's just so good.
Absolutely, it's a great album. I just sit in my house sometimes, and like while I'm trying to do work for my job or just I just throw this on and just I let it ride and I put the album on repeat and just let it ride. Like after the fourth,
I'm not trying to move to
like,
anything else. I just want to stay here.
Yeah, like after the fourth, fifth listen, I'll be like, wait a minute, I'm gonna play this album like 4 or 5 times already. Okay. But I'm still gonna play it one more time before I move to something else.
And now getting into our throwback review with Dr. Dre's The Chronic. And looking back at this album, released in 1992, it redefined the West Coast sound and contained a reinterpretation of G-Funk. It's sequenced perfectly. It just has a time capsule that captures where the West Coast sound was headed and going. And even listening to it recently again, I'm like, how like perfect of an album it is, and just one of those cemented projects in hip hop lore is so crazy to me, because I'm like, man, Dre was ahead of his time. He knew where to take it. He knew like how this album was gonna affect the culture years later. What to you like does this like album mean and still mean even years later?
I was living here in Atlanta. I was living here in Atlanta at the time that The Chronic came out, and I was 11. I was 11 going on 12, and the summer of '92, you could not ride through Atlanta and not like for every 5 cars that was driving in Atlanta, 4 of them was playing this album. That's how like literally that's how influential this album is. The album influenced the culture so much that Criss Cross's second album, The Bomb, essentially is a cross between The Chronic and Doggy Style for kids and teenagers. Like that literally was the direction that Jermaine Dupri was going in when he made Criss Cross's second album. And I mean, this album is literally a no skip album. Like,
no skips at all, man.
Dre Day, Let Me Ride, Nothing But a G Thing, Lil Ghetto Boy, like Dre and Dre knew what he was doing when he came in and was like, okay, so I've got to change the sound. As far as production is concerned, I've got to change the sound direction that the West Coast is going in, because essentially NWA albums, as great as they are, is a cleaner version sound wise. It's a cleaner version of what the East Coast was already doing when it came to the production. So Dre comes in, he's essentially left Ruthless Records, he's left NWA, gotta figure out a new sound to take us to, and he starts pulling out all of these George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic records, grabs these samples from it, flips them. We got a whole new sound. It's G-Funk now. Like, and let's take people in this direction. And he pretty much revolutionized the whole game, because it was like, it's like The Chronic is the testing ground. The Chronic is the guinea pig. Doggy Style is we perfected the sound with Doggy Style. The sound that we were trying to create with the Chronic got perfected with Doggy Style. And then he pretty much was on autopilot after that. It was just what can Dr. Dre, Warren G, and Daz not do as far as producers is concerned? And DJ Quick. You gotta throw DJ Quick up in there as well.
Yeah, he's gotta be.
Because when DJ Quick saw that this was the sound, that this was the direction that we were going into as far as West Coast production was concerned, he flipped it and started doing this. But DJ Quick also can play. So he started adding those elements to it as well. I feel like DJ Quick is honestly one of the most underrated West Coast producers when it comes to the West Coast sound. But The Chronic is one of those albums, and shout out to The Source, but shout out to The Source in a bad way, because here's the thing about The Source, and people will tell you this about The Source magazine within that era. Within that era of time, it was hard for anyone who was not out of New York to get 5 mics. It was hard. It was difficult.
5 mics.
And for The Chronic to not get 5 mics when it initially comes out, because I think it was like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
The Source decided that they were going to do this issue. They did this one issue where it was like, so our team sat down and we figured out what albums people kept saying deserve 5 mics, that we needed to give 5 mics.
Yeah.
But in the initial run of when The Chronic first drops, The Chronic only got 4.5 mics. Robbery.
Yeah, that's a crime.
Pure
that's
robbery.
That's just.
It's a lot of albums. It's a lot of albums that when they first came out didn't get 5 mics, that The Source had to go back in that issue in 2007, 2008 and give them 5 mics. Outkast's first album, Southern Playlist of Cadillac Music, didn't get 5 mics. That was a 4.5 mic album. Mobb Deep's album, The Infamous, didn't get 5 mics. And that's the album with Shook Ones Part 2.
Shook Ones, man. And y'all don't give that 5. Come on.
4.5. 4.5. What else? Some other albums that didn't. So some other quality hip hop albums. Doggy Style didn't get 5 mics. Doggy Style got 4.5. Biggie's first album, Ready to Die, 4.5. Like it was very hard for you. Like
The Roots, Things Fall Apart didn't get 5 mics. What?
Four.
Oh my goodness.
And then Outkast's second album, ATLiens, got 4.
Wait, Illmatic didn't get 5 mics.
Oh no. Yeah, no. Whatever list you're reading, that list is incorrect, because Illmatic in its first run was a 5 mic album.
Okay, I was about to say.
Illmatic was the last real 5 mic album before they gave Biggie's album, Life After Death, his second album. They gave Life After Death 5 mics.
Okay, gotcha.
So
I'm about to say that would be insane. That would be crazy.
Illmatic was 93. Life After Death is 97. So it's literally a 4-year run of no albums getting 5 mics until we get to
come on.
The Source was on one.
Oh yeah.
Source was on one. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because there are some albums just getting robbed. I mean, just some unequivocally great albums.
Outkast didn't get a 5 mic album until Aquemini. And that's their only 5 mic album.
My goodness, What did
Sparks.
but before we move on, the Andre album, because I know like we originally were going to have you on when Andre's album released, and that's obviously it's so crazy because um his whole discussion, especially the GQ interview where he's mentioning like, hey, I don't feel as though like I can, what can I really talk about with the rap album? Then he releases the flute album, has mixed reception, but um, I think certain times throughout the day, man, it's an album where if you really want something different, you can play it like you're saying, like if I'm working on something, if I'm like
Mm-hmm.
cooking or just I can put on the background, just let it play. Like, how did you feel about the album and what he talked about it?
You know how when you're on social media and people are like, "Hey, I'm throwing this on to cleanse your timeline,
Mm-hmm.
to cleanse your news feed." That's what this album is. It's literally a throw this
Palette
on
cleanser.
to clear your chakras, if you will. Like, I don't, all the things. I've literally legitimately only played that album 3 times since it's come out. I've only played it 3 times.
Yeah.
I have not went back to
Me
that
either.
album.
Me either. I'll
And
be
it's
honest.
and, and it's not like, and it's not because I don't like it. It's just I'm a listen, I'm an Andre 3000 fan.
Yeah.
And from an MC perspective, um I've said this in countless interviews. I said this in countless discussions. Andre 3000 and specifically ATLians,
Yeah.
the second album, ATLians Andre 3000 is who I'm chasing every time I write.
Mm,
That's who I chase every time I write. I chase that Andre 3000. Whenever I write music that y'all hear me make,
yeah.
I how would that particular Andre 3000 approach this beat or approach this topic or approach this discussion, like
Yeah.
the thing that we're discussing in the song. And so I I don't really understand where he's coming from, and it's like, I get it. If you're not in the headspace right now to really rap,
Yeah.
that's fine. But I don't have don't say I don't have topics to talk about when
Life of the party.
when did
Like,
when did
what
the
was that?
last
That
when did the last
the
Kanye
verse on
album come
Kanye. The
out?
verse. Come on, like
Yeah,
that was a
like
masterpiece, man. That verse
you
was.
argue you arguably, whatever year that album came out, you
2021.
arguably gave us the verse of the year with your verse
Yeah.
on Life of the Party. That
Bam.
was the verse
We
of the year.
heard that song. I think on Drake on OVO Sound Radio, Drake played that. He
Mm-hmm.
literally played that, and the world heard it. It was like, this is the best verse of the year. Like insane, bro.
Name a verse that year that was better than Life of the Party.
None.
There is
None.
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 You and that wasn't that I promise you that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. 2021.
In 2021, you gave us the best verse of 2021 with Life of the Party. You can't tell me you don't have anything to
Can't buy
talk
that. I
about.
can't buy that.
Just say, I'm not in the space right now to,
I
because
can
bro, you got
digest
some,
that better if you say that. But that was true storytelling, what that verse
you
was.
got you got stuff to talk about,
Yeah,
because
we do.
like
Absolutely. And another tradition we have on here, always give our favorite albums of the year, top 3 favorite albums of the year at the last episode. There are a lot of albums I've liked this year, ones I've gone back to, ones I've kind of had different feelings on. Um, First one, Black Thought and El Michaels, A Fair Glorious Game. that that album's incredible, man. And I already was a fan of El Michaels Affair, but just getting Black Thought paired up with them, man, that was, to me, he's just one of the, he's in that all time list of MCs, man. All time list, bro. Black Thought is just so special to me. I also had Maida's When I Hear Your Name for R&B. I think she's really versatile. I think I like how Chris Brown gave her a look on his new album. Gave her, added her as a feature. That was a really just album I keep going back to. Really concise. And Nick Grant's Sunday Dinner, one you recommended. I love that album. I think I was re-listening to that, like, bro, this is one of my overall favorite albums of the year. Nick Grant is incredible. It's one of the most impressive rap albums of the year. It's got a lot of soul. It's just, it's concise. It's structured so well. The 18 songs, but it's structured so well. I don't get bored throughout the album. I keep wanting to listen and go back to it. So those would be my top three. And I mean, I can't forget honorable mentions. Killer Mike has to be in there in terms of ones I wanted to put on, but just I didn't go back to as much as these three. You, kind of, what would be your top three favorite albums?
Top three albums of the year for me, in this order.
Okay.
Number one, absolutely Killer Mike Michael. Killer Mike made the rap album that symbolizes what Atlanta rap should evolve to. Like, that's, if you really, and you're from here, if you're from Atlanta,
right,
and you listen to Michael, you know that album is so Atlanta. Like, it's absolutely Atlanta. It's an Atlanta rap album, but it's an Atlanta rap album that gives us a mature man who's still dealing with a lot of things, who's still wrestling with a lot of issues within himself, and wrestling with a lot of issues within the culture. And it's a beautiful album. Like, it's just a beautiful album.
It really is.
All of the features on it were appropriate. The topics were appropriate. The soundscape, as far as the production was. If Killer Mike does not win Rap Album of the Year at the Grammys for Michael, the Grammys do not know. The Grammys themselves don't know music.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. Like, that's the Rap Album of the Year. My number two is Glorious Game, Black Thought and L. Michaels Affair. This was actually my first time being exposed to L. Michaels Affair. This is my first time being exposed to them, and I'm so glad that it was done through Black Thought.
Yes,
Black Thought is, you know how we have boxers that we say are pound for pound the best boxers in the game, even if they're not in the heavyweight division. Because for a while we looked at the heavyweight division as like the end all be all of boxing. But it was always like Roy Jones Jr., pound for pound, best boxer. And Black Thought, pound for pound, is the best MC in the game right now. There's nobody better than Black Thought.
Yeah, man.
Period. He's listening to driving in the car today on my trip from Jacksonville to Atlanta, I listened to the Questlove Supreme podcast episode with Black Thought.
Fire episode.
Because somebody had recommended me. They were like, yo, the time in the podcast where Fonte is asking him questions, you want to listen to that part. And it gave me insight on how he writes, his approach to writing, his methods, like all of the things. And it gave me insight onto how he writes as a solo artist versus how he writes when he's with the Roots.
Yeah, he has to write differently. He even says that.
And I and in listening to it, it's helping me in how I want to approach just writing now. How I want to approach just writing. Because after bro did that 10 minute freestyle on Funk Flex back in 2017, I said to myself, the level of writing that I want to be on, I want to be on the Black Thought level of writing. And knowing that, I was like, I said, yo, I gotta keep going back and listening specifically to this episode. And shout out to Questlove Supreme, and shout out to Questlove for having Fonte on the team.
I love how
you don't get those
Fonte.
type of questions.
No, Yeah, man.
if you don't have an MC as equally awesome as Fonte.
Exactly. He knows
On
game.
the team.
Yeah.
And then my number 3 is Kenyon Dixon, The R&B You Love.
Mm.
There's not a skippable track on that album is flawless R&B. It's flawless. And me honestly going through like a personal situation, if you will, and involving like love and all the things of love. I've told Kenyon Dixon this plenty of times on Twitter, because we go back and forth a lot on Twitter. I know it's X, but his mama named him Twitter, so I'm gonna call him Twitter. But we went back and forth on Twitter after I listened to the album the first time, and I told him, I was like, you literally told the story of my first half of 2023. Like you literally told my story on this album. No skips, none whatsoever. The album is incredible. Shine is my favorite. Shine is one of my favorite songs off that album. What else? 2000s R&B is 2000 R&B is incredible. That song is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Lucky, the Grammy nominated song Lucky, is one of my songs on the album. And then the song And Then Some with featuring his daughter's mother. Like that's a thing that no one knows.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Kenyon Dixon's daughter's mother is Alex Isley. Yeah. So
wow.
yeah. So his daughter, because his daughter's name is Isley. And when Alex Isley got nominated for a Grammy this year, and Kenyon got nominated for a Grammy this year, Kenyon put on his Twitter, he was like, shout out to my daughter Isley, who can go to school tomorrow and say that both of her parents got nominated for Grammy Awards. So I was trying to figure out who he talking about?
Yeah.
Like who he talking about? And then that's when somebody threw in the comments like, yo, like Alex is his daughter's mother. So like, yeah, shout out. Incredible album.
Yeah.
And then of course my honorable mentions. I have 3 honorable mentions. No Name Sundial, Nick Grant, Sunday Dinner. Sunday Dinner is bananas. And Skyzoo and the other guys, The Mind of a Saint.
I really like that project.
Who decides, okay, I'm gonna write a whole album about snowfall from the perspective of the main character of Snowfall.
Bro, that was so
flawless. Completely flawless. And then I got one more honorable mention. Larry June and the Alchemist, The Great Escape.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, Larry June, The Alchemist, that was fire. Alchemist, he's been on a run. He's been on a run this year, bro. He's been producing for a lot of people, a lot of big name people. Even Drake's on Drake's Scary Hours, the Wickman track. I mean, he's been everywhere, and I really would like to see him next year. I really do want to see him, or the year after. Produce for Nas, man. I would love to see that. I would love to see that hook up. I did see him in the studio with Mos Def though, so that's gonna be we might get that first.
and if I have to have an R&B honorable mention, Cleo Soul Gold is one of the greatest R&B albums to come out in the last 5 years.
She just keeps outdoing herself.
every time. So yeah, that's my list. I think it's a glorious list. So yeah.
Before we go to break though, I know Brian B. Dot always has this thing where he puts up his like top 10 best rappers of the year, and it's always like controversial. People are wondering his list. Okay, number 1, he's got J. Cole. 2, he's got Wayne. 3, he's got Lotto. 4, Benny the Butcher. 5, Killer Mike. 6, Gucci Mane. 7, 21 Savage. 8 Conway, 8 Conway the Machine, 9 Larry June, 10 Nas. Who do you agree with? Who do you like disagree that shouldn't be on the list? Who should be on the list? What do you think?
I'm gonna do my Lil Wayne impersonation again. Gucci Mane. Shout out to my nigga Gucci. Like, it's like I don't know. I can only do 5. I can only do 5. Killer Mike is definitely 1.
Yeah.
Killer Mike is 1. J. Cole is 2 because J. Cole has the verse of the year with the Secret Recipe verse. Like,
that verse is crazy.
Everybody wants to debate me and be like, no, the first person shooter verse is the better verse. No, it's not. It really isn't. And that's not taking anything away from the first person shooter verse.
Yeah.
It's J. Cole. Like, when has he not been dope on a feature in 2023? Like,
but Secret Recipe to you was the top one.
He was like, but yes, Secret Recipe was the one. Secret Recipe was the verse that started this whole.
It's the one that started the run because he was kind of on like a slow trajectory. He had some features, but they weren't as good. This Secret Recipe was more like, oh, that's Cole. People were like, that's Cole again.
And then he came with First Person Shooter, and then he came with the feature on Nicki's album.
Yeah.
He was on a tear. So Killer Mike, Cole, Larry June, Nick Grant, Black Thought, and okay, I can't do 10. Nas, Currency, because everybody slept on that Currency and Jermaine Dupri album.
Most underrated project of the year, bro. Currency is like becoming one of my favorites.
Yeah, everybody slept on that album. Man. No Name and last 2, Nick, No Name. I said Nick Grant already. Oh, Benny and number 10 for me would be honestly Big Sean, because Big Sean's verse on Larry June's album was crazy.
He's been on a crazy feature run too. Big Sean is dope, really dope on features.
Big Sean's verse was crazy on that Larry June.
I do want to say this though. Before we go to break. An album that came out last month of the year, last year, that I think even to this year I still go back to a lot is Ab-Soul's Herbert. I think that project is highly underrated, man. I really think it is, man. And I know it doesn't have that same commercial appeal, but Ab-Soul really did something on that album. I think that's an album I still revisit a lot. And I think
Herbert is dangerous.
Yes, man. It's a dangerous project. I'm like, man, I wish people. I just don't see people talking about it as much. I know we got a lot of good albums this year, but that's one that flies under the radar.
Yes, it was.
Definitely. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with our May the Lord Watch the Little Brother story review.